Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. Today, we've got a couple of fun announcements. Really, I guess just one fun announcement, and then, my standard fare of works in progress. But the big announcement for today, which I'll just jump right into, is the fact that I have a call for testers that is starting today. So technically when I'm filming this, it's not actually out yet, but all of the details and everything will be available once this video goes live. So without further ado, I will announce you to my finished cowl that is still unnamed. Yeah, so this is my finished cowl. Let me go ahead and put it on for you. This will count as my finished object for today. And so it's still, I literally just pulled it off of the blocking mat again this morning. So I blocked it before I seamed it because I wanted the edges to be clean. And then after I seamed it, I blocked it again. And I don't know about you, but when I first finish knitting a cowl, I feel like there's always like a break-in period where even though you've blocked it to a certain way, you kind of have to like undo all of that and let it get used to the way that you wear it around your own neck. And so there's a little bit of zhuzhing that still needs to happen. It's still a little bit stiff just from being blocked. So I'm still kind of working that out. But anyway, enough about that. I talked about this in my last episode, but this is a cowl that I designed as part of the maker program for Blue Sky Fibers. And so this is using Woolstok Light in the colors Driftwood, which is this beigey color. That's the main color. And then the contrast color is this guy, which is Wild Thyme. And as I've said, I'm still working on a name for this guy. I guess I can talk a little bit about the inspiration for this design. So you'll see that on my mannequin today is my Wildflower Bloom cowl, which is a cowl I designed about this time last year. And I talked about this last time, but I wanted a really organic flower motif, and that's what I came up with. But in the process, I had also sketched out this motif, which is a much more traditional Fair Isle feel. It's giving much more of like a vintage vibe. My inspiration was really like an old flower shop where you've got like vintage pottery, maybe one of those forgotten gardens. And as I was knitting this up, I realized that what I kept picturing in my mind as I was working on this was the book, The Secret Garden. So if you've watched me before, then you know that I am a big fan of reading. I've always loved to read, and as a kid, The Secret Garden was one of my favorite books. Like, I just loved that book so much. I read it so many times, and I'm an only child, and so I had a lot of free time on my hands as a kid where, I don't know, just the idea of this story of this girl that's kind of forgotten about, able to kind of get lost in this basically unused manor and all of these grounds that have been just forgotten about for like 10 plus years. She discovers this garden and she works with I think a groundskeeper and some other people in the nearby area to kind of rehabilitate the garden, and in turn rehabilitates herself and some other people. It's like kind of a good moral of the story of like this girl that everybody had given up on. They thought she was frail and sickly and ugly and uninteresting, and then she kind of takes it upon herself to do this improvement project, and not only does she improve the garden, but she improves herself, and it's like a whole great story. If you haven't read it, I know it's kind of like probably a kid's book, but it's a great read. I'm sure it's probably a short read. But anyway, that's just whenever I was working on this, and now when I'm wearing it, that's just what I picture in my head, is just this like secret garden with like overgrown vines, and you're kind of like trudging through things to just kind of see the potential of this garden and this like vintage pottery and these vintage motifs. I don't know if that's making any sense, but that's kind of where my head is at with this. So maybe by the time this video airs, I will have a name for this. I'm hoping that by the time I'm actually putting the test call out that there will be a name. So if there is, I will put it down below. But if you are interested in participating in the test knit for this, I will have all of that information down below in the show notes. There will be a Google form that you can fill out for the application. And yeah, definitely take a look at that if you're interested. If not, the pattern, I mean, you know, give or take time for testing, I'm hoping that the pattern will be out in about a month or so. It just depends on how testing goes. I like to wait and see. I don't really like to give definite hard dates before I've gotten a good idea of how it's testing, just because even though something can work well for me, I want to make sure that it works well for everybody else, that nobody's having any issues with anything, whether it be understanding the pattern, with getting gauge, with finding the right yarns, with the yardage amounts adding up correctly. All of that is very important. And so once I've had a few people kind of go through and successfully knit it, that's when I can start to feel a little bit more comfortable about setting more of a hard deadline of when you can expect to be able to purchase this pattern. So stay tuned if you are interested in this, but yeah, I'm really excited that this is done. I'm really excited that this is now available for testing. I'm excited to see what people do with it. As I said, you know, I was going for that very traditional Fair Isle motif, and so I wanted to go with something neutral, kind of just totally opposite from this guy, just completely the opposite direction, but still a floral motif. And but I am also really curious to see what this would look like in more vibrant colors. I've also mentioned that I really enjoy this motif a lot, and I could see it maybe in like a round yoke sweater or even a hat. So I'm thinking through other options that I might do for this. And you can see that, so I've done it twisted, which I think is technically called like a Mobius cowl, where you have your long panel, and then instead of just seaming exactly as a tube, I actually twist it. So you slip a handful of those stitches and then you join. So there's a constant twist in it. And the reason I do that is because mainly for shorter cowls that you want to kind of fit around the circumference of your neck a single time instead of looping multiple times, I like the twist because it gives the effect that you have wrapped it around yourself instead of it just being kind of this tube. Now you can flip it the other way. If you want more of just like a flat look, you can have it that way as well. And that's the other thing I like about the Mobius cowl, is that it kind of gives you both options. One thing to keep in mind though is that by twisting it, you do lose just a little bit of the width because you're scrunching it a little bit, so it gets a little bit tighter. But I don't know how you feel about it, but I like them to be a little bit snugger around my neck. I don't like it when they're super long. That's a personal preference. I know everybody's different. Some people like them to kind of hang a little bit lower. Some people like them really tall. And I think that that's the nice thing about knitting up a cowl, is that you can take the pattern, like the instructions that I have set out, and then you can kind of adjust as needed. And I am going to talk about that a little bit. So obviously my pattern is currently with my tech editor right now. She is checking it out and finding any errors that I have in there. And one thing about this pattern that I did want to call out is that it is, so I ended up using 2 skeins of each of these yarns. And did I put the yardage information? Haha, okay. I did find a tag with the yardage information. So each of these skeins are, let's see, they're 50 gram skeins, which is 218 yards or 200 meters. And obviously you can tell that the main color, which is the driftwood, I use more of than the contrast color because it's just used more frequently in the motif. The exact yardage I used is 371 yards of the driftwood, which equaled 2 skeins. And it's about a skein and a half. You know, this is how much I had left of the second skein. And then for the contrast color, I used 227 yards. Now that is technically 2 skeins. What's tricky about this is that it's only 9 yards of this second ball. So while you are using 2 skeins of yarn, you're barely using, it ended up only being 2 grams of this, which is, yeah, I think it's 9 yards. And that can be tough, especially if you're wanting to do a stash buster, or if you're just trying to be a little bit conservative with your yarn usage. I can totally understand why you wouldn't want to buy an entire skein of yarn to use 9 yards. So this, let me see, I've written down the dimensions so you would know, to have an idea. So this is 27.75 inches full length before seaming, and once you fold it, it's about 13.75 inches in width. So this width around your neck right here. Now, what I would recommend is, if you're trying to be a little bit conservative with your yarn, on the back side, I mean, I would just knit it until you run out of the contrast color, and then go to that panel and just seam it up. Because, you know, I've got large panels of the main color in between these motifs. So probably, what I guess, I want to say that I ran out of yarn after the last motif, maybe somewhere about right at the beginning of the last set of vines. So if you just omit that last set of vines, it's gonna be in the back, and you'll still have a band of this main color in between. So I think it's okay. I think that there are things you could do if you really wanted to avoid having to break into that second ball of yarn. And also, that is very specific to this yarn in particular. Now, because these are 50-gram balls, which are, a lot of times when you're buying a fingering to sport weight of yarn, you're getting it in 100-gram balls. So if that's the case, then 1 skein of each 100 grams should be enough for you, and you're good. So it's only if you are buying this exact yarn to keep that in mind. But there's enough here left over. What I am thinking about, as I mentioned before, I actually think doing a beanie in this motif, just reversed, where the beanie would be using the contrast color, and the main color would be the green, and the contrast color would be the beige. I need to see if that will be enough, but I'm thinking it might be. So that could be a good option on how to use up the rest of the yarn. So stay tuned on that as all of that unfolds. I'm really happy to have this. I feel like as we are starting to almost get to fall, I'm really happy that this is now in my wardrobe. I love wearing this as well, but this is definitely one I like to wear on those like bright afternoons, especially. It feels like a very springy. What I love is to either wear this in the springtime or wear it in the deep of winter, where I just need a pop of happiness. But in those early autumn days where you just, I don't know about you, but I really am ready for fall. Like, I'm ready for all of those fall warm tones. And so this is feeling really, really great. Yeah, I'm hoping I'm gonna come up with a name soon. I've got some ideas. Some of them are either like they've been used a million times, or it's just such a mouthful that I don't know if I really love it. So I'm workshopping some names. I've even workshopped some with my tech editor. So I hope to have a name for this soon. It's just, this one's been a tough one to get a name for, but we're working on it. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. And yeah, I think that's it for this. Hopefully, I feel like I kind of skimmed through it quickly, but I'm looking at the time and it's 14 minutes, so I think that's probably good enough. So yeah, if you're interested in testing, take a look at the information below. That'll have all of your yardage requirements, the schedule of when this is expected to be done by. I'm always really flexible too with my test knits, just to kind of put that out there. I like to have a date, like a due date, if you will, but I'm always flexible because things come up. It's life, you know. This is just a test knit. In the grand scheme of things, it's not like you are curing a disease, you know. Like, I understand that this isn't the only thing you've got going on in your life. And this should be fun. This shouldn't be stressful. And I don't want people to take this on and then be like, oh my God, I have to finish this. I can't believe I signed up for this. So I'm always pretty flexible if there's something that came up, just within reason, to, you know, stay in communication with me and let me know. So yeah, that's it for my new fall cowl. And I did also want to make a quick note, since I have been pointing at my mannequin a whole bunch. You will see that she's very bright today. She's very bright. But she's also wearing my Everyday Attitude tee, which is what I wore last week. And I just wanted to say thank you, because a lot of people were very encouraging. And it's just kind of funny because when when I filmed last week's video, this is another one, I'd literally just taken it off the blocking mat. Like it was still wet that morning, and it had like just dried in time for me to wear it for the video. And so that was kind of my first time trying it on, and I was still really unsure about how I liked it. And at the time I was just wearing it with yoga pants. And what's funny is the B-roll that I added later on, where I'm wearing it with jeans, that was when I finally was like, oh, I do like the way this fits me. So if you have knit yourself something and you're a little unsure about how it looks on you, make sure you style it, because just wearing it with PJs is not going to be a good indication on whether or not you like it, because it's probably not how you're actually going to wear it out and about. But the moment I put that on and just did a little French tuck, which I know not everybody loves a French tuck, but my millennial heart will always love a French tuck, and that's just how it's gonna be. The moment I did that French tuck into my jeans, I was like, okay, this is an outfit. I like it. I feel comfortable in it. I would go out in this. So yeah. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who had very positive comments about the top and all of that. So yeah, happy news there. And I guess that kind of covers all of the things that I have completed. And now we are just going to talk about my works in progress, which there aren't a ton of, and you have seen everything, but this one is coming back a little bit from the vault, sort of the vault. Here we go. All right, you might be feeling like you're having deja vu if you're looking at this and you've been watching me since the beginning, but it's back. My Field Day cardigan by Ozetta is back. And if you are new here, I knit this up. I was about halfway done, and you know, all of the nasty construction, if you will, it's not nasty, but like all of the technical construction that you have to pay really close attention to happens in the beginning. So I had done all of that, and I'd gotten about halfway. I was in really deep denial, but I knew deep down that it was too big for me. My gauge swatch versus the gauge on this ended up being slightly different, and that happens just based on the weight of things, and also bigger needle, larger piece of fabric. You're gonna knit, you're just gonna have slightly different tension, most likely, which I did. This pattern calls for, what does it call for? It calls for a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle, and I am using a US 6, which is a 4 millimeter needle. And even then, my gauge was still slightly off. So with a little bit of math, if I didn't say, I was originally knitting the size 2, but that one that I had almost finished was measuring out exactly at a size 3. So I finally came to my senses and frogged the thing after deep denial, knitting way more on it. And I'm finally picking it back up again now, and I'm knitting the size 1. And that is with the goal of achieving a size 2 fit. And the nice thing about when you pick up a project that you have long forgotten about and you're knitting it at a smaller size is that it moves a little bit quicker. So I think part of it too is it's starting to cool off just a little bit now, and so I'm getting quite excited to wear this. Like, I am really looking forward to being able to wear this in my wardrobe. So I have, let me see, I know it looks like a weird blob right now, but you can see here. All right, that is the back panel. Also, can we just take a minute to look at my adorable little needle stoppers? One of them, I can't tell which, yeah, this one even has a little bite mark courtesy of Bagel. Anyway, all right, so you've got your back panel, you've got your collar, your, not your collar, your button. Well, it's your collar and your button band. Then I've already picked up and done the front right half, and I have just picked up the left half and just started that. So it's still a little bit early days on that. So I need to get to the same length on the left side as I've done on the right, and then that's when I will join everything. And then it will kind of, I mean, it won't exactly move quicker because I'll be knitting on more, but I don't know about you, the moment you go from having a pieced garment to it all being on the same needle, it just still feels like it's moving quicker because you can kind of see the garment taking shape and it's not just like all of these weird pieces of fabric. So I'm so happy to have this back. This is using, what is this using? This is using Hazel Knits Lively Decay in the color Shanny Pants, which is this gorgeousness. Every single video where I talk about this cardigan, I have to show off the yarn because this green is just, it glows, it's so beautiful. You guys know I'm a big fan of Hazel Knits. And the thing is, I've only really started using her yarn in the last year, but she has every color you could possibly think of and then some. And if you don't see it in the store, she'll dye it for you, which is crazy. Like but the thing is, she's got every color you could possibly need. So, you know, you're good. But I should say they, because it's husband and wife owned, even though I've mostly worked with Wendy. They have incredible yarn. They're incredibly lovely to work with. They're great people. And if you get a chance to ever go to the store, definitely go to their store because it's stunning. It's phenomenal. It's great. So field day cardigan, it's happening. It's coming along. We are getting there. I'm hoping to work on this a bunch tonight and over the next couple of days. I'm really anxious to have this done. So happy to be working on that again. Outside of that, I only have my one other work in progress, which I haven't done a lot on, but I have done some on. It's probably not going to look like anything to you guys. All right, the Timberline cardigan. I'm bringing this out because, as I've mentioned in the past, I am just going to continually hold myself accountable. This is the very, very long-term work in progress that I started for my husband 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I don't know. It's been more than 2 years. I know that much. I have got my lovely Warm Stripes Progress Keeper to keep me honest about the point in which I gave up and the amount in which I've knit, which right now is still kind of depressing and isn't making me feel great. The rows are just really long and I'm trying to do 1 to 2 rows a day. What it's coming out looking like is I'm doing 2 rows every other day, and which is why it probably doesn't look a whole lot different from last time. But again, I just have to keep reminding myself the sleeves are already done. So I just need to do this. So this is basically the whole body panel. And then you have there's a shawl collar, and these portions are actually held on waist yarn. I've just got them on barber cords. And it's because the shawl collar is actually done in a different needle size. And then you will pick that up for both sides, knit all of that, and then seam it together. In retrospect, I actually kind of wish I had just used the same needle size. I just don't think it's that big of a deal to have it be the same needle size, and it would have probably been easier to work that together, but it's fine. It won't be a big deal. It'll probably move quickly at that point. So yeah, there's progress. Things are happening. Could be worse, could be better, but it's on the map. So I didn't realize that this would be so cardigan heavy. I've fully embraced fall. We're done with the summer tops. We are in the cowls and the cardigans. That's the season we're in right now. So, all right, yeah, that's the Timberline cardigan by Jared Flood. That's all there is to say about that. Oh, I can at least talk about the yarn. if you didn't already know, but it is using Woolstok worsted, and it's in the colorway October Sky. And it's a really nice, hardy, everyday worsted wool yarn. Like, I don't think it's scratchy at all, and it's pretty affordable in the grand scheme of things when you're looking for a solid wool for your basics or your cables. So I'm pretty happy with that. That actually does it for all of my knitting for this week. I feel like this has been kind of a quicker episode. I mean, I've still got to talk about my podcast and my books, so we've got that. But yeah, I guess I think normally I talk a lot about my knitting projects, and this week we're a little bit more concise. So moving on, as I mentioned, I've got a couple of podcasts that I want to share that both of these podcasts are pretty new to me. I just discovered both of these in the last week or two. So the first podcast is called Project Notes. She is Claudia in Nevada, and I think she's pretty new. I think she only has 1 or maybe 2 episodes. I've only watched her first episode, but I think when I was pulling information, I saw that she's got a new one up. And so, obviously she hasn't had a ton out there, but what she was showing I thought was really beautiful. She was working on a pressed flowers cardigan in stunning yarn, and that's a knit that I've always wanted to do. I think the whole pressed flowers line is really beautiful, and I thought that the colors she picked for her cardigan were really, really pretty. And she just seems really lovely, and her podcast was really nice to watch, so I would recommend her. And then the other one that I've recently discovered is called Knit All the Things. And she is Laurel, and she's based in Portland. It looks like she's been doing this for a while, so I'm sort of kind of trying to catch up on her, her backlog of her episodes. But I just really loved her aesthetic and the patterns she was working on. It looked like she was working on some patterns from one of the more recent Pom Pom magazine episodes, or not episodes, one of the recent Pom Pom magazines. I think it might have even been one of the last ones before they stopped putting out print magazines. And I think she was also doing one from, actually, it's a book that I have. I don't know how well you can see. Ooh, that yellow book right there. It's called Close Knit. I got the book because I thought it looked really cool, and I thought it had some really interesting patterns in it, but I haven't knit anything from it yet. But she was talking about that, and I think she's knitting one from it, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was really cool, and she was mentioning that I think that author has another book coming out that she's pre-ordering. So she just has a really cool aesthetic, slightly different vibe from some of the other podcasts, which I really enjoy. I really liked her style. And she also seems quite lovely. So definitely check those out, give those a watch. And then for my book talk, I feel like I have officially joined the club. I don't know, everybody has been talking about these books for so long, and I finally caved. So I've had this book on my Libby queue forever. I feel like I haven't moved in the queue. I've started at 400 and something in the queue, and I feel like I'm 200 and something now. It's ridiculous. But because I got tired of waiting, I just decided, why don't I just go buy the book? Because I'm so curious and people keep talking about it. So I am reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I think it's Maas. I think you say it Maas. If you haven't heard of this book, I don't know, it's taken everybody by storm. It's all over everything. I've been seeing it on Instagram and social media forever now, and I'm a little bit late to the party, but I'm finally at the party. And people warned me that the first book was slow and maybe the worst one of the series, and you kind of have to get through the first book to get to the good stuff. And I will say, I am enjoying it. I'm not hating it or anything. I will admit I'm about halfway through, and it is getting a little bit slow. You're kind of waiting for things to happen, but you can also tell that it's building. It's developing the characters, it's world building, so you get to experience kind of this magical world. Yeah, what I'm enjoying is that I've been reading a lot of like your typical rom-coms over the last, I would say that I don't always like pull out books that I'm specifically looking for on Libby. A lot of times I'll just add things to my queue, and then when I finish something, if I don't have anything else like in my queue to read right away, I'll just skim until I find something available. I sometimes won't even read the synopsis, and I'll just grab it and start reading. And what happens when I do that is that sometimes I end up getting kind of the same genre over and over again. And so I feel like the last like 4 or 5 books have been rom-coms, and after a while they start to get very formulaic, you know, girl meets guy, they hate each other, they couldn't be more different but are also the same. Weird event happens, makes them sort of bond while they still hate each other. One starts having feelings but doesn't want to say because they're stubborn. The other one starts having feelings but doesn't want to say because they have too much pride. It's a big will they, won't they, and then they come together, and then there's a disagreement, and then you don't think it's going to happen, and then in the end they live happily ever after. So I'm not trying to be cynical because I love those books. Those are great when I'm just trying to like pass the time, especially I read at night before bed, so it's nice to have something that's just not so heavy and serious and dark. So I love those, like they're great, but when you read several of them in a row, it's time for a change. And so while I expect that this will have a similar formula with the male and female characters, because I know and I have heard that this has a lot of romance in it, it also has a very magical world with magical beings that live alongside humans, and there's maybe a war going on. I'm not entirely sure yet because I'm still really early in, but there are some problems, and the humans don't get along with the magical folk and vice versa. And so you get to see them kind of come together. Some of them, I don't know. I don't want to give anything away for anybody who maybe hasn't read this, even though I think I've been living under a rock and might be the only person who hasn't read this. So yeah, it's fun to read something very different from my usual. And so I'm enjoying it. I'm just, based on what everybody has said about how good it's supposed to get, I'm looking forward to getting to near the end of this when things are supposed to like go crazy. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be like good crazy or dark crazy or what. I have no idea, but people just keep telling me like, oh my God, keep me updated when you get to certain points. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I'm excited to be reading this. And also it's really nice to actually have a physical book again. Like I love to read my Kindle. I love the portability of the Kindle, especially reading it in bed. It's very easy. Like I don't have to worry about keeping Thomas up because he's definitely more of a morning person and I'm more of a night person. Isn't there some kind of joke about like find the person, if you're a morning person, find a night person and then get married? Because like inevitably you will be with the person who has a completely opposite schedule as you. So we go to bed kind of early and then I use that time to read, but having the Kindle is nice because I don't have to worry about keeping him up. But I bought a book light so I could read this in bed, which has been kind of okay, kind of a struggle. We're getting used to it. But it's really nice to have a physical book. And so I think I'm probably going to buy all of these physical. I bought just the first one because I wanted to make sure I would actually like it before, it's like a 7-book series, I think, or maybe 5 books. Maybe this one is 5 books. But I'm enjoying it enough to where I think I will read the whole series. So yeah, I'm finally in the club. I'm like foot just barely in the door, but I'm in the club. So that counts for something. Yeah, I think that might be it for me today. I think this might be one of my shorter episodes, which is crazy. But yeah, if you watched till the end, thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Definitely take a look at my test call if you're interested in this. keep an eye out, as I'll be doing more updates about this pattern as we get closer to actual pattern release. And, you know, as I work with testers, I'll be sharing their photos as they're posting them, and that's always really exciting. But other than that, thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. You can email me at meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.